You ever walk into a place and feel like it's watching you? Like the air itself is holding its breath? That's what happened to me in Blackwood, Oregon, a small town buried in the shadow of the Siskiyou National Forest. My name's Ethan Carver, and I'm no hero, just a guy who moved to a nowhere town to fix up a crumbling house and maybe outrun a few bad choices. But what I learned out there, in that abandoned graveyard, still has me jumping out of my bed each night, running like it's trying to get free. Let me tell you what went down, and you'd better believe you're gonna need to listen to me all the way through. It was the end of September 2025, and I had been living in Blackwood for roughly a month. The town has maybe 2,000 people, a grease and regret-smelling diner, and more trees than homes. I bought this wrecking machine fixer-upper just outside of town, a two-story with a leaky roof when it rained. I'm a carpenter by trade, so I figured I could refurbish it, maybe flip it for a profit. The house was cheap because it bordered the woods, and nobody was going to live that close to the woods. Folks around town were saying that it was bad land, but I wrote it off as country gossip. I mean, haunted woods? That's what people say when they have nothing better to talk about. My first week, I caught a glimpse of something odd pruning brush in the backyard. There was this old vague trail, hardly visible, that curled into the forest. It wasn't indicated on any map, and the realtor didn't mention it. I was curious, so one day I grabbed my axe. Yeah, I'm the axe guy, and followed it. The trail was covered up, roots curled out like they were trying to trip me. I would have been a quarter-mile in when I came upon it. A cemetery, hidden away in a meadow as if it had been swallowed up by the trees. The place was ancient. Headstones were shattered, some of them lying on their sides, names worn down to nothing by rain and wind. Moss shrouded everything, and the smell was like damp earth and something bitter that I couldn't recognize. There were maybe 30 graves, most from the 1800s, by the appearance of the few I could still read. One headstone stood out to me, however, a small one, half buried beneath a mangled cedar tree. It had only Mary, 1873. No surname, no inscription. Only Mary. For some reason, I couldn't get this name out of my head. It felt like it was staring back. I reminded myself that it was merely an old cemetery, not likely to have been abandoned when Blackwood was a logging camp. But I was there, and I got this sensation, like I shouldn't have been there. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and I could have sworn I heard a branch break somewhere behind me. I turned around, axe gripped in my hand, but nothing, just trees, just quiet. I wrote it off, told myself I was crazy, and went home. But that night I couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about that cemetery, about Mary, about how the woods seemed to draw in around it. The next day I went back. Don't know why, I just had to. I brought my axe with me this time, planning to prune some of the underbrush, possibly make the grounds look less like a horror movie set. I set to work chopping at the vines entwined around Mary's tombstone. The cedar tree towering over it was strangely new, its bark soft, oozing sap as if it had just been cut down. I didn't notice it much at first, just hacked away and kept going. The blades sliced through the vines and this rich, reddish sap started dripping out. Not like normal sap from a tree, thicker, more like blood. I stood there staring at it. My stomach churned. It's just a tree, I told myself, but my words rang too loudly in the quiet. That's when I noticed her. She was about 50 yards from me, between two pines. A woman, or at least the shape of one, in a filthy gray dress. Her face was obscured by shadow, but I knew she was staring at me. My heart pounded against my rib cage. "Hey!" I yelled, gripping my axe in my fist. "You okay out there?" Nothing. She didn't move. I took a step closer to her, and she moved a step closer to me at the same speed. I froze. So did she. My mouth went dry. I took another step, and she took another step. It was like some creepy game of Simon Says. I yelled again, louder this time, but my voice cracked. She just stood there mimicking me, dumb. I sped off, ran the whole way home, axe pounding against my leg. When I arrived home, I locked the door and put my back against it, panting, telling myself it was just some lost hiker bothering me. Blackwood's got its share of crazies, old hippies, bums, name them. But I knew better in a part of my mind. The way she moved, the way she looked at me, wasn't right. The next few days I stayed away from the cemetery, busy fixing the house, new floorboards where the old ones had decayed, fixing the roof. But I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. At night I would hear them, scratches on my window, gentle thumps as I imagined someone pacing across the porch. I would look, but there was never anyone there, only the darkness and the trees. I started keeping my axe beside my bed, which is crazy, but it comforted me. I was keeping an eye on my living room one night, trying to distract myself from things with a beer and a dumb TV show. The power flickered, which wasn't unusual. Blackwood's power grid predates the ground it's resting on. And I heard this, a knock at the door, slow and deliberate. Thump, thump, thump. My blood locked up. I reached for my axe and crept toward the window, peering through the slats in the blinds. Nothing. Just the porch, black under the yellow glow of the light bulb. I stood there holding my breath, but the knocking ceased. I figured it was just the wind, maybe a branch hanging against the house. But the following morning, when I opened the door, there was a mark upon it, a deep, extending scratch, as though someone had run a blade along the wood. I couldn't take it anymore. I walked over to the diner in town, hoping to gather some clues. It was Mabel's, owned by an elderly lady named Ruth, who knew everyone's business. I sat at the counter, ordered coffee, and tried to be casual. "Hi, Ruth. Do you have any idea about that old graveyard out in the woods?" Her face changed. She set the coffee pot down, bumping it roughly against the counter. "You been out there?" she asked, her voice low. "Yeah," I said, trying to play it off. "Just happened to see it. Pretty creepy." She inched closer, her gaze tightening. "Keep clear of there, Ethan. It ain't right. People say it's cursed. Loggers used to say they saw things out there. Shadows, forms. People who went snooping around didn't always return the same." "Come on, Ruth," I said, forcing a smile. "You don't really believe in that sort of thing, do you?" She did not smile back. "My grandpa was a logger. Told me he once saw a woman out there, in a gray dress. Followed him for days. He swore she wasn't human. Told me she'd mirror every move he made, like she was learning from him. He burned his axe and never went back." I felt as if I'd been punched in the gut. A woman in a gray dress, imitating. I never mentioned anything to Ruth about what I saw. She'd think I'm crazy. But as I left the diner, her words kept playing in my head. That night, I couldn't sleep. Kept thinking of that person in my head, her shadowy face, how she crept. At 2 a.m., I heard it again, the knocking. Thump, 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 dot. This time it never stopped. I picked up my axe and stood beside the door, my hands shaking. "Who's there?" I yelled. Nothing. More knocking, soft and insistent. I opened the door wide, axe raised. Nothing. The porch, the humming light bulb. Then I noticed it on the ground at the far edge of the porch. A pile of fresh cedar branches, oozing that same reddish sap. My knees went weak. I closed the door, locked it, and sat all night, axe across my knees, listening to the forest groan and creak outside. The next morning, I went back to the graveyard. I know it's crazy, but I had to look. I had to tell myself it was a joke, some locals playing a prank on the newbie. I grabbed my axe and a flashlight, even though it was day. The clearing was the same, Overgrown headstones, moss everywhere, that smell lingering in the air. But the cedar above Mary's grave, it was changed. The trunk had gashes, as if someone had chopped at it with a knife. My knife. I glanced at my axe, and there they were. Traces of that red sap, still tacky on the blade. Panic set in. Had I done that? Had I fainted or something? No way I'd remember. I stepped back, racing heart, and that's when I saw her once more. The gray-clad woman standing on the edge of the clearing. She was closer this time. I could see her face, or what would have been a face. It was simply blank, smooth, a mask, but eyes that dug into me. She raised her arm and I saw it, an axe identical to mine, glinting in the sunlight. I did not think. I sprinted, crashing through the underbrush, branches tearing at my flesh. I could hear her behind me, footsteps too close, keeping in lockstep with mine. I didn't have the courage to glance over my shoulder. I made it to my house, locked myself in, grabbed my phone, and called my friend Jake, who lived an hour outside of Medford. "I need you to get here, man," I stammered. "Something's wrong." "I don't know what, but I need you." Jake appeared that night, all suspicious smiles, and, "You been smoking something, Ethan?" Attitudes. I explained it all to him. The cemetery, the lady, the axe. He didn't believe me, but he stayed over anyway. We sat up in the living room, shotgunning beers and attempting to laugh it off. At midnight, the knocking began again. Thump, thump, thump. Jake's face went white. "What the hell is that?" he breathed. I grabbed my axe. "Stay here," I said to him, but he followed me out to the door. We both pushed it open, and there she was, out on the edge of the yard beneath the trees, the woman in the gray dress holding that stupid axe. Jake cursed. "Ethan, what in the world is that thing?" "I don't know," I whispered. She came closer, and we both moved backward, slamming the door shut. The knocking didn't cease this time. It intensified and increased in pace, like she was pounding with two fists. Jake was frantic, yelling for me to call the police, but what was I going to tell them? "There's a ghost with an axe at the door?" Then it simply stopped. Dead quiet. We stood there holding our breath for an eternity. When we finally worked up the nerve to peer around, she was gone. But the porch was covered in those cedar limbs, in massive clumps, oozing sap. Jake's face went gray. "I'm out, man. You're on your own." He left early. I didn't blame him. But I couldn't leave. This was my place, my life. I wasn't going to let some things scare me away. So I returned to the cemetery one last time. I don't even know what I was thinking. Maybe I was going to face off with her. Maybe I just wanted to have questions answered. I grabbed my axe, crowbar, and shovel. I was going to exhume Mary's grave. The clearing this time had been different. The air was heavy, as if a storm was brewing, but the sky was blue. I started digging, my hands shaking so much I could barely hold on to the shovel. The ground was soft, as if it had just been plowed. 3 feet down, I hit something hard. Not a coffin, but a small wooden box, hard and rotting. There had been a package of cloth, dry and stained. I unwrapped it, and there it was. An axe head, rusty but sharp, wrapped in what looked like a piece of a gray dress. I knew she was there before I saw her. A low, keening sound, like the whine of wind in the trees. But it wasn't wind. She stood right behind me, so close I could feel the cold rise off of her. I turned around, and there she was. That empty face, those burning eyes. She raised her axe, and I swung mine down, screaming. The blade sliced through her like smoke, but she didn't vanish. She just smiled. No mouth, no teeth, just a line on that empty face. And then she vanished. I dropped the box and ran. Didn't stop until I got home, crying and gasping like a kid. I grabbed a bag, got in my truck, and drove straight to Medford. Never came back. The house still stands, so I'm told. I don't care. Let it rot. A few weeks later, I did some digging. Cyberspace, not dirt. Found an old newspaper article in 1873 about a woman named Mary Hale, logger's wife who disappeared in Blackwood. They found her body in the forest, hacked to pieces. The paper said she had a confession out of her husband that she'd been behaving oddly, following him everywhere, copying him, bearing her axe with her, he claimed, to quiet her spirit. Guess that didn't work. Here's the part that keeps me up at night. The article said they never found her head. Undefined. If you're ever in Blackwood, stay out of wood. Story number 2. There's a stretch of road just outside the town of Ravens Creek that no one drives after midnight. Black Hollow Road, they call it. It winds through the forest like a serpent, cloaked in fog even on clear nights. Locals say it's cursed, that if you drive it after midnight, something follows you. Something not alive. Josh didn't believe in ghost stories. When his friends dared him to take the midnight drive, he laughed it off and grabbed his car keys. "I'll be back in 30 minutes, he said. "Try not to get scared waiting." It was 12:03 a.m. when he turned onto Black Hollow Road. The forest was dense on either side, trees leaning over like silent watchers. His headlights barely pierced the fog ahead. The air inside the car grew colder. The radio fizzled with static, even though there was no music playing. He passed the old wooden sign half buried in moss. "Turn back," Josh smirked. "Nice touch, town." Then he saw the girl. She stood on the roadside barefoot, wearing a torn white dress. Her head was bowed, black hair hanging over her face. Josh slowed down, rolled down his window. "Hey, are you okay? Do you need help?" She didn't move. The fog thickened behind her. A chill seeped into Josh's bones. Something wasn't right. He blinked, and she was gone. Josh slammed on the brakes, heart pounding. He looked in the rearview mirror. Nothing. Then he heard it. Breathing from the back seat. Slowly trembling, he turned his head. The girl was there. Her eyes were hollow, black as pitch. Her mouth opened in a silent scream as her hand reached toward him. Josh screamed and swerved off the road, crashing into a tree. When he came to, it was morning. The road was quiet, empty, but something had changed. His reflection in the cracked mirror of his car blinked before he did. Terrified, Josh fled back to town. But Black Hollow Road hadn't finished with him. At night, he heard footsteps outside his window. The girl's dress dragged across the floor of his apartment, though he lived alone. He'd see fog roll in under the door. Every mirror reflected her watching him from behind. He tried to tell people, but no one believed him. Not until they found his car, abandoned, doors open, on Black Hollow Road. Blood on the dashboard, no sign of Josh. Some say his soul got trapped in the road like hers. Now, if you dare to drive Black Hollow after midnight, you might see a young man hitchhiking with a haunted look in his eyes. If you stop to help, he'll look at you, smile faintly, and whisper, "She's right behind you." And when you turn, you never make it out.